There is a small yellow bottle sitting in the kitchen of almost every woman I know over 50. You probably have one right now. You bought it at the grocery store, maybe even the health food store, because the label said heart healthy or light or natural. You use it every single day to saute vegetables, to roast chicken, to make your morning eggs. And I need to tell you something that took me 40 years of medicine and one extraordinary woman's handwritten notebooks to fully understand. That bottle may be one of the biggest reasons you feel exhausted before noon. I'm Dr. Sarah Levine. I'm 68 years old. I trained at Hadassah Medical School at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and I've spent over 4 decades at the intersection of preventive medicine and ancestral Jewish health wisdom. I live now in Boca Raton, Florida, and I work primarily with women over 50 who come to me after years, sometimes decades, of being told that their fatigue, their brain fog, their stubborn weight, and their disrupted sleep are simply part of aging. I have never accepted that answer. My grandmother Rachel didn't either. Today I'm going to show you exactly what is happening inside your body every time you cook with what the food industry has sold you as a healthy oil. I'm going to explain why Jewish women in my grandmother's generation, women who lived well into their 90s, never used these oils and what they used instead. And toward the end of this teaching, I'll share something my grandmother told me in her kitchen on a Friday evening that I've since found confirmed in peer-reviewed research. Something she described simply, in her quiet way, as the difference between oil that gives life and oil that slowly takes it. This is one of the 7 Jewish laws of longevity that I've spent 40 years documenting. Today I'm sharing Law 3, and once you understand it, you will never look at your kitchen the same way again. My grandmother Rachel was born in Łódź, Poland in 1921. She survived things I will not describe in detail here because some weight is too heavy to carry lightly. She came to Brooklyn as a young woman, and she lived to 98 years old. Not 98 in a wheelchair, 98 walking to shul on Shabbat morning, 98 with a mind so sharp she could recite passages from memory that I had to look up. She never took a single prescription medication until she was past 90. Her kitchen was her laboratory. On Friday afternoons, the whole apartment smelled of rendered chicken fat, what we call schmaltz, and good olive oil, the kind that came in dark bottles from a shop in Borough Park run by a family from Haifa. I used to sit at her kitchen table and watch her cook, and she would talk the whole time. Not recipes exactly, more like transmissions. She'd say things like, "Sarah, oil either feeds your fire or drowns it. The wrong oil, and your body spends all its energy just trying to survive what you put in it." I was 12 years old. I didn't understand it then. I understood it at 45, when my own body began to break down. By the time I was in my mid-40s, I had fatigue that conventional medicine couldn't explain. My blood work was, in the words of 3 different physicians, unremarkable. My thyroid was within normal range. My hormones were expected for perimenopause. And yet I was waking up tired, reaching for coffee by 8 in the morning, unable to sustain concentration past 2 in the afternoon. I felt like someone had turned the voltage down on my life. I went back to my grandmother's notebooks. She had kept them since the 1940s. Spiral-bound composition books filled with her careful handwriting, half Yiddish, half English, full of observations about food, rest, community, prayer, and the body. In those notebooks, I found what she had tried to tell me as a child, and I found the beginning of what I now call the 7 laws of longevity. Before I go further, I want to ask you to do something. Type in the comments right now. I choose to protect what is sacred. Just those 5 words. Because what I'm about to share is not a diet tip. It is a teaching about the covenant between a woman and her own body, and that covenant begins with intention. Now, let me tell you about what is actually happening inside you. The kitchen item I'm talking about is vegetable oil, specifically the refined seed oils that have dominated Western kitchens since the mid-20th century. Canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil. These are the oils that fill the bottles labeled all natural and heart healthy at every grocery store in America. They are in your salad dressing, your mayonnaise, your crackers, your restaurant food, and almost certainly your home cooking. And here is what they are doing to your energy after 50. Inside every cell in your body, there are structures called mitochondria. You may remember them from school as the powerhouse of the cell. That is exactly what they are. They convert the food you eat into the energy your body runs on, into something called ATP. When your mitochondria are healthy and functioning well, you wake up with energy, you think clearly, you feel like yourself. When your mitochondria are damaged or inflamed, you feel exactly the way millions of women over 50 have described to me in my practice, like you are running on 3/4 of a tank that never quite fills up. Refined seed oils are extraordinarily high in a fat called linoleic acid, an omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acid. In the right ratio with omega-3 fatty acids, linoleic acid is part of normal human biochemistry, but the ratio matters enormously. Our ancestral diet had an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of roughly 2 or 3 to 1. The modern Western diet has a ratio of approximately 20 to 1, in some estimates higher. This radical imbalance is driven primarily by the explosion of seed oil consumption in the last 70 years. Here is where this becomes critical for women over 50 specifically. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health have documented that mitochondrial function declines as estrogen drops during and after menopause. Your mitochondria are already under hormonal stress. When you add a high dietary load of linoleic acid on top of that, those omega-6 fatty acids become incorporated directly into your mitochondrial membranes. And because they are structurally unstable at high heat, they oxidize. They produce inflammatory compounds called oxidized lipids and free radicals directly inside the machinery your body uses to generate energy. A 2021 analysis published in the journal Nutrients found that elevated oxidized linoleic acid metabolites were significantly correlated with markers of systemic inflammation and fatigue in middle-aged and older women. This is not fringe science. This is biochemistry that your grandmother's generation avoided entirely. Not because they knew the word mitochondria, but because they knew in their bones that certain fats gave life and certain fats diminished it. According to data from the CDC, American women now consume an average of 3 to 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil per day through home cooking and processed foods combined. That is approximately 400 to 500 calories of linoleic acid daily, an amount that simply did not exist in any human diet before the 20th century. Your doctor almost certainly has never mentioned this. Not because your doctor doesn't care, but because medical training in this country dedicates almost no time to nutritional biochemistry, and because the dietary guidelines that shaped a generation of physicians were, for decades, heavily influenced by the very industries that manufacture these oils. The Talmud in Tractate Bereshot teaches that a person should not eat anything that is injurious to health. This sounds simple, but the rabbis were specific. The obligation is not just to avoid obvious poison. It is to examine carefully what you consume and to ask whether it serves life. They called this Shmirat Haguf, the guarding of the body. It is a religious obligation, not a preference. Maimonides, the great physician and rabbi of the 12th century, wrote extensively about fats and the body in his regimen of health, composed for the Sultan Saladin in 1198. He was categorical. The fats appropriate for human consumption are those that have been used for thousands of years. Olive oil, the fats of clean animals, the fats found in nuts and seeds in their whole unrefined form. He warned against fats that had been processed or altered from their natural state, describing them as producing what he called thick blood and a sluggishness that no medicine could cure as long as the offending substance remained in the diet. What Maimonides called thick blood, researchers at Harvard Medical School today call chronic low-grade inflammation. The language is different. The phenomenon is identical. This is the third Jewish law of longevity, what I call the law of clean fats, which is part of the larger law of pure foods, rooted in Kashrut. Kashrut is usually taught as a list of permitted and forbidden foods based on animal species and preparation methods, and it is that. But it is also something deeper. It is a 3,000-year-old framework for evaluating what you put into your body based on whether it supports or degrades your vitality. The rabbis didn't have mass spectrometers. They had observation, tradition, and a fierce conviction that the body is Tselem Elohim, made in the image of God, and that what you feed it is a spiritual act as much as a physical one. My grandmother Rachel never bought a bottle of vegetable oil in her life. She cooked with schmaltz, rendered chicken fat from kosher chickens, for savory dishes. She used cold-pressed olive oil for everything else. On Shabbat, she drizzled it over bread with a pinch of salt and a word of gratitude. She used butter when she was cooking dairy. These were the fats of her ancestors. These were the fats of Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jewish women going back centuries. Modern research has confirmed what those women knew. Cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil is rich in oleocanthal, a compound that researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found produces anti-inflammatory effects in the body comparable to low-dose ibuprofen, without the side effects. The Mediterranean diet, of which olive oil is the cornerstone, has been shown in multiple large studies, including the landmark pre-dimed trial, to significantly reduce markers of cardiovascular inflammation and cognitive decline in women over 50. Schmaltz, like other animal fats from pasture-raised animals, contains a balanced ratio of saturated and monounsaturated fatty acids that do not oxidize at cooking temperatures and do not destabilize mitochondrial membranes. Here's how to apply this law today. Start by removing the seed oil bottles from your kitchen. The canola, the vegetable blend, the sunflower, the corn. I know that feels like a significant step. Do it anyway. Replace them with two things: a good, cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil for lower heat cooking, dressings, and finishing, and a fat that is stable at high heat, such as grass-fed butter, ghee, or coconut oil for searing, roasting, and sautéing. Next, begin reading labels on every packaged food you buy. Seed oils appear in crackers, bread, protein bars, salad dressings, hummus, and almost every restaurant meal. You will be astonished at how ubiquitous they are once you begin to look. You don't have to be perfect overnight. Begin with your home kitchen. What you cook for yourself is where your health is built. Within 7 days of reducing your seed oil intake and replacing it with stable ancestral fats, most women report a noticeable difference in their energy stability through the afternoon. That window between 2 and 5 o'clock when exhaustion typically hits. Within 21 to 40 days, the shift in inflammatory markers is measurable. Many of my patients over 50 have described it as feeling like someone turned the lights back on. But I need to tell you something important. There is a second dimension to the law of clean fats that my grandmother always taught alongside the physical one. She believed, and the tradition supports this, that how you prepare food matters as much as what food you prepare. The intention with which you cook, the presence you bring to your kitchen on a Friday afternoon, the blessing said over the oil before it touches the pan. These are not superstitions. They are what Maimonides called the disposition of the spirit, which he described as directly influencing the body's ability to receive nourishment. I'll share more about this practice in a coming teaching. It is one of the most practical pieces of the system, and one of the most overlooked. I want to be honest with you about something. There was a period in my late 50s when I let these practices slip. I was traveling between Boca Raton and New York constantly, eating in airports and conference hotels, telling myself the exceptions were temporary. Within 6 weeks, my fatigue had returned. My thinking felt slower. I woke up heavy in a way I recognized from my worst years in my 40s. I had stopped following my own law. I tell you this not to confess a weakness, but to tell you something my grandmother said when I called her from a hotel room in Manhattan, feeling exactly this way. She said, "Sarah, these practices don't punish you when you leave them. They simply wait for you to come back." That is the mercy built into the system. The 7 laws are not rigid. They are alive. They respond, but they require your return. We live today in a world that is asking your body to do more with less than at any point in human history. The processed food supply has never been more inflammatory. The stress load has never been higher. The average woman over 50 is managing her own health, often the health of aging parents, often the emotional weight of adult children, often the professional demands of a career that hasn't stopped requiring everything from her. Your mitochondria are under siege from multiple directions simultaneously. What you choose to pour into your pan in the morning is not a trivial decision. It is one of the few variables you can control completely. Take that control. The Talmud teaches in Tractate Yoma that a person who saves a single life, it is as though they have saved an entire world. The rabbis meant this about others, but I believe it applies to the life you are living in your own body. Saving your energy, saving your mind, saving the next 20, 30 years of your vitality. This is not vanity. This is a sacred act. To summarize what I've shared today, refined seed oils, canola, vegetable, sunflower, corn, soy, are high in linoleic acid, which at the ratios present in the modern diet destabilizes mitochondrial function and drives the chronic inflammation that steals your energy after 50. Jewish ancestral wisdom, from Kashrut to the kitchen practices of women like my grandmother Rachel, has protected against this for 3,000 years. Replace these oils with cold-pressed olive oil and stable cooking fats. Read your labels. Begin in your own home. Give it 21 days and pay attention to what your body tells you. In my next teaching, I'll share another of the 7 Jewish laws of longevity, one that most women over 50 have been doing exactly backwards without realizing it. It involves something you do every single night before sleep, and the ancient practice that transforms it from a passive act into one of the most powerful healing practices in all of Jewish tradition. If this teaching reached you at the right moment, please share it with one woman you love who is over 50 and struggling with her energy. You don't have to explain it, just send it. Let it speak for itself. Subscribe if you haven't, and turn on your notifications so that my next teaching reaches you when it's ready. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me, what oil are you cooking with right now? I read every comment. Your answer will help me understand what to teach next. In our tradition, the body is not yours to neglect. It was given to you in trust. Tselem Elohim, made in the image of the divine. To care for it is not optional. It is the work of a lifetime, and it is never too late to begin. Until next time, l'chaim, to life.